This morning, I want to talk about oneness. Is oneness real? Can I prove to you today that oneness is real? That it's a real thing, that we can not just think about it as an intellectual concept or a spiritual ideal, but it is something that is baked in to the presence and the inherent beingness that each one of us is. That's my goal. If I could convince the world to not only be and experience and live from oneness, I think we could heal the whole world, personally. Yeah, we could, couldn't we? And part of the challenge, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've kind of noticed there's a little bit of divisiveness going on in the world right now. Yeah, here and there. I want to say it's worse than it's ever been sometimes, but of course, I haven't been alive since the founding of humanity necessarily that I recall, and so there probably have been some other very trying and challenging times in the human experience. But what I feel like I know for sure is that if we could find a way back to that inherent oneness, we'd find a way back to connection and compassion and living from wholeness. It's not that we wouldn't have any problems to solve. We probably still would have quite a few problems to solve, but how we would go about solving them would shift dramatically. Because one of the challenges that's happening, I personally think, is that we keep trying to solve the problems of humanity from separation and from that anger and that ego state. It feels like there are levels of awareness that exist in human experience, and that what is happening across our planet is that we keep trying to solve the problems and challenges from the level of ego, from the level of our lizard mind, if you will, from the level of separation, and we won't ever make progress. And so when love and connection and compassion is on board, we have a greater chance. And that happens when more of us actually stop just talking about and contemplating oneness and actually call ourselves out of our own ego, out of our own lizard brain, back into our oneness. So I want to talk about that as a place to start. What is it that our teaching tells us about that? So in the Unity tradition, the founders of Unity, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, talked about oneness a lot. They taught about oneness. They say it's a cornerstone of this New Thought teaching. And they taught that oneness is an underlying reality of all existence. They believe that there is one omnipresent, all good power, which is God, and that every individual is an expression of this divine essence. This means humanity is inherently divine and interconnected with God and all of creation. So I suspect when we come here every week, we hear about oneness and we get inspired to practice it. And the founders of this teaching absolutely taught about oneness, wanted us to embrace that notion of oneness. And it's the same for us in Science of Mind. Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, absolutely talked the same way about oneness. Right now, my husband Ken and I are reading every day The Science of Mind, which is commonly called the textbook in our tradition. However, we're reading the 1926 version. Holmes wrote the 1926 version originally, and then they went and edited it for some strange reason. It's still good. It passes. Yeah, it's all right. No, it's great. It's a great book. They edited it in 1938. But we're finding a lot of richness in the 1926 original version. And one of the things he says, it is well to remember that the enlightened of every age have taught that back of all things there is one unseen cause. In studying the teachings of the great thinkers, we find that a common thread runs through all, the thread of unity. And this is what I think is so genius about what he says here. There is no record of any deep thinker of any age who taught duality. No record. So what that tells me is that we have to stop teaching and thinking from duality. Now, I also acknowledge it can be easier said than done. I feel blessed, having found this teaching so early in my life, starting to study and be in the practice of this teaching to find moments and pockets of oneness and connection through my own spiritual practice. And then how it's felt for me throughout the years is that the more I was diligent to that practice, it's like there was a building up of something within me. And there have been moments where I've had a truly mystical oneness experience and have studied the mystics tremendously. All of the mystics throughout the ages report having a mystical experience leads them into this almost inexplicable, like you can't find words to describe it, to tell people about it. All one can do is be in the majesty and the mystical awareness of it, and it has impacted me tremendously the times it has happened. It feels like it blew me out of my own ego self. And in that experience of absolute oneness, I was surprised to feel that I could still sense the person that is Michelle Medrano, the personality, the life, and the journey of that, and could feel the connectedness of all life and could feel the power of that. And what I was left with, the few times it's happened, it's only happened a few times, that amazing, like, kind of experience, was that I came back into my body, into my awareness, with absolute, deepened sense of compassion and connection to it all, to everything and everyone. And it was almost like wanting to walk around the world and just touch everyone's face and say, I see you. Oh, look at you. You're so beautiful. Wow. You could get put away for doing that, of course. But that's what I wanted to do afterwards. It was so profound when it's happened. And so then, wanting to experience more of it, I've continued to cultivate that practice in my life and continue to ask myself, how can I use that connecting experience to support me, to sustain me, to help me in times of trouble, in times of challenge? Yesterday, I did something for the first time, and I say for the first time because I will do it again. I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane yesterday. I did, yeah. I had a friend who had a strong intention for why she wanted to do this, and she asked me if I would go, and I had thought, well, yeah, I think that'd be kind of interesting. So we knew for a long time the date we were going to go, and I approached it with excitement and trepidation all at the same time. And so yesterday we showed up to the place. We were delayed because of the clouds, and I kept saying to myself, if this is what I'm supposed to do, everything's just going to unfold perfectly. And so we waited and waited, and finally our time came. Now, it was a tandem jump, of course. So I'm in this little plane. It's just the two of us and our tandem guys and the pilot. And I'm strapped to this guy, basically sitting in his lap, and he's tightening the straps the whole time. And at one point before we jumped, I remember feeling like I'm so close to this man, I can feel him breathing behind me. And I thought, I need to be one with this man. So I started to breathe with him. I don't know if he ever noticed or not, but I started to consciously breathe, and I started to lean into him, not only physically, but lean into knowing he has done this so many times, and that I was just going to throw my trust and my connection with him and just do it. And when the time came, we scooched up to the edge of the plane, and then before I knew it, he just pushed me out of the plane. And to my delight, honestly, to my delight, he did a somersault in the air with me. And I flipped around, and it was like this little girl in me went, wah! And I was flying, baby. It was amazing. Just dropping for, I think it was 30, 45 seconds until he pulled the chute, and then he pulled the chute, and then we floated down to the ground. It was beautiful and amazing, and he just kind of floated me around, and we did this. I'm still from it today. I can feel the energy of it in me. But what I really loved about it was oneness, feeling my willingness out of that practice, out of that desire to use this time in a challenging moment that could have been filled with anxiety, but filled with connectedness, and then feeling the connectedness of the sky and flying, and then being back down on the earth. And I was so amped up. I said to my husband, I think I need to go run. I need to go run. I got to just get this out of me. It was just like, whoa. So it was a really beautiful experience that I can hearken back to over and over again, to call me back to the power of oneness and how it can serve us when we're afraid, when we feel disconnected, when we feel separate, when we feel alone, when we feel challenged, that we can breathe into life itself and reconnect ourselves with that energy that lives at the core of us. It has always been here. It's ancient. It's from the time that life was created. Oneness has been here with us. And when we practice it, we experience greater connection and compassion. I'm just going to come back to those words over and over, connection and compassion, which I'm saying to us today is what we crave the most. We think we crave chocolate. We think we crave companionship. We crave connection and our own compassion. We crave ourselves. We crave our soul. We crave our oneness. We can't have it if we exclusively continue to be seduced by the world of form. We can't have it if we continue to just believe what we see, what appears to happen, what appears to be so. We've got to be willing to go deeper. Ernest Holmes also says to us in this reading from the 1926 edition of his book, one of the great teachings of Moses was, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one God," and saying, "I am that I am." That was old when Moses was yet unborn. Holmes says, "For it has been inscribed over the temple entrances for generations." We may go back much farther than Moses and find the same teaching, for it crops out from the literatures and sayings of the wise of all ages. Jesus taught us this when he said, "I and the Father are one," and the saying, "the Father that dwelleth in me." The teaching of unity is a cornerstone of the sacred scriptures of the East as well as our own sacred teachings. It is today the mainspring of the teachings of the modern philosophies, such as Christian Science, divine science, the unity teachings, the New Thought movement, the occult teachings, the esoteric or inner teachings, and even much that is taught under the name of psychology. Without this basic teaching of unity, these movements would have but little to offer. Science has found nothing to contradict it, and it never will, for this teaching is self-evident. Holmes and all of these teachers back of these movements and so many others have called to humanity over and over again, as have ancient teachers forever. Please remember who you are. Remember the oneness that you were born out of. And he mentions science. There's some conversations that happen occasionally where there's a suggestion that Holmes was at a party once and met Albert Einstein and that they had some pretty profound conversations. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe you can tell me, Jody, later. We'll see. He may have met him, but what I do know is that he studied a lot of science, and he felt that science proved to us our oneness back in the 1940s and 50s. And I'm going to suggest to us today that if we really look at it, the new science, the physics that we know about, also proves the oneness and the connectedness of all life. Indeed, many scientists say the Big Bang Theory, which they call the original singularity, shows what Holmes says, that all of life, the only thing that could have existed at the beginning of creation was the infinite, and all that it had to create anything was itself. That the Big Bang Theory is literally proof that whatever it is that created this universe, that singularity created all of this out of itself. And of course, modern physics tells us that everything is created out of the same energy, just in different forms. One of the elements of physics that I like, and I am not a physics expert, However, I love to read some of these ideas and try to integrate them for myself, is the notion of quantum entanglement. Some of the experiments that they've done I find so fascinating, where they can take a particle and they can separate it from another particle and they can move them literally to other parts of the universe and of the planet, I should say. They haven't taken any to the moon as far as I know, but anyway, they can do something to this particle and this particle reacts, even though they are not in the same place. Non-local experience, quantum entanglement, one of the most striking examples of interconnectedness that we can see in the modern scientific world. When two or more particles become entangled, and how can we not be entangled if we're one, right? Then they can instantaneously influence the other. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance. I like that. Spooky action at a distance. What that means to me, what that says to me, is that you and I think we came to church today, and we think we're going to go back to our life from here, back to the things that we do every day, and we are going to do that, and that's going to be what happens in the world of appearance. But because of quantum entanglement, we'll be with each other forever and ever, right? And we can tap into the connection that we have with one another. We can walk away from this local experience into a non-local experience. And because I connected or talked to someone today, I might somehow have a little pocket of joy or sadness. Or I might see someone's face come to mind and say, oh, wonder what's going on with them. Have you ever had that experience? Or someone, I suddenly think, oh, I wonder what's happening with Laura Berman. And suddenly she calls me on the phone. Oh, Laura Berman's, wow, how did I feel her coming before she ever called? Quantum entanglement. Science tells us. We think we're going to Target and we're standing in line at the store. We are quantumly entangled with every person in that store. Now, you can spend time going, well, I don't like that. Or you could spend time leaning into it. That's what it means by saying, even when I go shopping at Target, I'm a beneficial presence. I'm broadcasting peace and love. I'm at Starbucks and I'm sending out. Nobody needs caffeine here. They're getting high on their connection with each other, right? That's quantum entanglement. And in our families and friends and people that we've just barely seen for a long time or don't know what's going on, we can send love and light to them. Every world leader. What's the possibility of stopping in this world of form with all the criticism and judgment? And instead, if I see somebody behaving in a way that I think is not very nice or not very compassionate, what if I just send love? I was telling somebody in the fellowship hall earlier, I have been love bombing Putin for a very long time. See, I don't think we're going to get Putin to change by being angry with him and criticizing. I can still not appreciate his policies. I can still not agree with what he is doing in the world and how he's doing it. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that I still can't access that oneness and love bomb him, affirming that he transforms into a connected, compassionate human being. And that's what we're forgetting a lot of times in this world of diversity. We're forgetting not only these principles, but we're forgetting our role and how we could really make a difference if we choose to. And how, as Holmes said, no great thinker who has ever spoken, preached, or practiced duality has ever changed the world. We have to be willing to do something different. So our teaching here invites us into doing some different things. And I want to remind us of those. And I am very clear that I'm just reminding us. I just want to be a voice that reminds us. It says, okay, what if we accept that we are one with everything and everyone? How can I then be, as Deepak Chopra would say, he would say, every being is a cell in the body of God. And our decision is, are we going to be a toxic cell or a healing cell? I'm inviting us to be a healing cell today. And the ways that we do that are talked about over and over in our teachings, in our centers, in our communities. So the first way, of course, is spiritual practice. If we are being seduced constantly by the world of form and by the world we see going on out there, to counter that, we have to have a relevant practice every single day that at the very least brings us back to the awareness of the oneness that connects us all, in that inner place of the Most High. We must go there. And there are no absolute prescribed right ways and wrong ways to do that, because what might work for you might not work for me. For some people, their oneness practice is a walk in nature every day. As long as I'm doing that with that in mind, with that intentionality to feel my oneness through the beauty of nature, by God, do it then. Some people, it's sitting and meditating and singing mantras or singing Laura Berman songs or whatever it might be, bringing us back to our oneness. And that works. For some people, it's 5 minutes a day. For some, it's 10. For some, it's an hour a day. For some, it's what they spend their whole day doing. His Holiness the Dalai Lama often spends his whole day meditating on compassion for humanity. And so it's finding what is our practice that leads us back into the truth of who we are. We've abandoned ourselves long enough. It's time to come home. It's time to come home to the light that lives within us, the light that truly makes a difference. And I assert that when we do that, we become a beneficial presence to every person we come in contact with. Being one of those people who you're just sitting next to at church and you don't know that person, they don't know you, and they leave thinking, wow, I feel awesome. Maybe it was the music or the message. Maybe it was you. Because you were in that space of connectedness. We all make a difference to each other. And the more we do that practice, the more we also, I think, build a mental equivalent that can have us have some of those pretty profound oneness experiences that can transform us forever. So that's the first practice. The second one, and I have 3 total, the second one is challenging our patterns and habits of duality. When I find myself talking in terms of duality, that has to do with who's right, who's wrong. It has to do with my ego hanging on tight. It has to do with looking around the world and coming to conclusions, falling into it's all messed up and it's never going to be better. All of those places which we can go to sometimes, but if we're living there, we are not doing the world any good because we're practicing duality. Yes, sometimes it is whole, complete, and perfectly messed up. I get it. But don't forget the whole and complete part. There's some wholeness afoot here. There's some call for humanity. And I think it's the most profound spiritual call of our lifetime to say, are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to come home? Are you willing to remember who you really are? And the only way we can do that is if we constantly, diligently, lovingly challenge ourselves on our practice of duality. I get it that sometimes the call of oneness can be painful because it's not just flowers and love and happy. It's sometimes feeling the suffering of humanity. It's sometimes witnessing how hard it is to live this life at times for us and for the people we love and the people we see around the planet. But we can't afford to shy away from that and just not look at it because it's too scary. I like to practice saying to myself, look, I'm going to look right at what is, and I'm going to call it for what it is. That's not okay for children to not have food. It's not okay for people to not have a home. It's not okay for people to be treated this way. And at the same time, I'm going to see the wholeness back behind it. I'm going to see it from every level, not just from what appears to be so, but also from what is mine to do, from the connectedness of all life, from that place that allows me to extend my prayers and my affirmations and my knowingness without spiritual bypass, but with a willingness to look right at it. That's just not okay with me. I don't like that we're at war. I don't like that people are this way or they're that way or this. I can acknowledge that, but I also can still challenge myself into oneness. And this can be a bigger challenge for some of us because some of us are extremely stubborn in our own willingness just to deal with our own pain from the past, just healing our own unhealed past. If we can't do that work, we often can't find that oneness as well because we're just pushing our own stuff down into the well of our soul and not being willing to actually see the truth of who we are. So sometimes finding oneness means it's time for me to forgive and find ways to forgive the people in the past who harmed me. It's time for me to do the holy sacred work to return me to me, because until I do that work, they have the power. And I am not empowered. And so ignoring it, pretending it's not there, will never serve us. That's an act of duality. It's about the willingness to be healed and be transformed. And lastly, to practice something that we practice in one of our first classes in Science of Mind that we teach, and we talk about a practice of walking through our life, and even if we don't do it physically, bowing energetically to every person we come in contact with these words: deeply, we are one. Deeply, we are one. And we are taught to do it with the people we run into. Imagine watching whatever news you watch. Deeply, we are one. Deeply, we are one. Continuing to claim that, affirm that, see that, know that, live that, changes us, changes our planet, and does the greatest good we could possibly do. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today.